Good evening and thank you for joining us. I'm Alex Flood. People concerned about the climate crisis that likely played a role in the record wildfires seen here in the Northwest got together outside Thunder Bay City Hall on Tuesday. The rally was a part of Org's Climate Emergency Day of Action in an attempt to push the federal candidates to ramp up their climate ambitions. Kurt Black reports.
People here in Thunder Bay have first-hand experience of how climate change has impacted the local environment, as this year's wildfire season has seen a record number of hectares of forests in northern Ontario left smoldering. And on Wednesday, many locals turned out to voice their displeasure with how the climate crisis has been handled here in Canada, while expressing their desire for parties running in the upcoming federal election to put the worsening climate situation at the top of their priorities. Event organizer Shadia Aidid believes, like many current issues, politicians have the tendency of saying the right things without backing it up, which is why she says rallies such as the one this week are so essential.
I think that climate isn't very different than a lot of other issues. I think a lot of, when it comes to racial justice, when it comes to tackling Islamophobia, a lot of it can be lip service, you know? I think the only way that institutions and governments will listen is if people rise up like they're doing today and demanding change, right?
Fellow organizer Kelsey Agnew feels the time is now for leaders of our country to stand up and acknowledge the developing climate situation for how dire it is both in the present and for future generations.
We need to have leaders that are treating this like the most important crisis that our time, that our people, that our kids, that our neighbors are facing. And I just don't see that happening yet.
Organizers here at the rally outside of Thunder Bay City Hall stress that the best way for Canadians to have a cleaner environment moving forward is to get out on an election day and make their voices heard through voting.
It is an election, so vote. That's another powerful way to share a voice.
Vote! Get out and vote, everybody! Thank you.
Kurt Black, TBT News.
It's a symptom of systemic racism when elders and First Nations are forced to leave their communities to live in accessible living homes in larger city centers due to lack of accessible housing. But the chief and council of the Red Rock Indian Band have a solution to that issue. And late last month, they cut the ribbon on a brand new 6-unit Elders Lodge. Adam Riley reports.
It's too sunny.
And with a quick snip of a ribbon, 6 new housing opportunities opened up for elders of the Red Rock Indian Band. The project has taken 18 months to complete due to delays related to COVID-19, but Chief Marcus Hardy is happy nonetheless to have this new facility with modern amenities now open.
It's amazing. It's been a community-driven event since day one. Really, they've been talking about it, you know, the community's been talking about it for years. And finally, you know, we pulled the pin and got it done. It's needed. We can't wait for people to start moving in and get some elders back to the community.
While there are many other projects that are underway in the community, Hardy says he personally felt that this one took top priority.
We want to take care of our elders. They took care of us throughout their whole life, and now it's our turn to give back, to make sure that they're safe, to make sure that they have family around.
Hardy says he is thankful to the engineers and the company tasked with constructing the lodge, which offers 6 single-bedroom apartments, laundry facilities, and a common area for their professionalism and accommodating during the pandemic. Lead designer Sasha Vayu says the lodge stands in stark contrast to other housing units in the community.
A lot of it's just single-family units, so it was a unique opportunity presented to do a 6-plex like this, the common space. Yeah, it was interesting. We originally had a larger plan, but it got taken back a little bit just because of funds.
Monty Romeo is the owner of B&L Contracting who built the lodge. He says the lodge in Lake Helen could be used as a blueprint for other First Nations who want to bring accessible housing to their communities.
It's got a very homey feeling. It's not so commercial, and it doesn't have a dungy feeling or anything like that. It's very warm, very light for the elder community, very accessible everywhere. Parking and everything one level. All the elders are in one place. It's a lot easier for nursing and such like that. They could get it done a lot quicker and a lot more efficient.
Adam Riley, TBT News.
20 years have passed since the devastating terrorist attacks in New York. Washington, D.C., and Pennsylvania took the lives of almost 3,000 people on September 11, 2001. It's a day to honor those who were lost and, of course, to recognize the heroes, including those who stepped up in a small town on Canada's East Coast, providing sanctuary to thousands of displaced passengers. Todd Battis has more.
Don't call Shirley Brooks Jones a tourist. The 85-year-old from Ohio has returned to Gander often since she and nearly 7,000 passengers aboard 38 planes were forced down here on September 11th. It was like landing in a foreign world.
That's what we did, you know? I mean, we did. We flew into the arms of angels that we never even knew existed.
Folks in town cooked, clothed, and invited the plane people, they called them, into their homes for days. Travelers were stunned. Locals like Oz Fudge were just being neighborly.
For Newfoundlanders and Labradorians, that's what it is. When we see something like that happening, we just want to run up and hug.
The story got out in books and famously in the stage production Come From Away. A scene from the Tony Award winner was performed at Washington's Lincoln Memorial. The play sold out shows worldwide, spreading joy, something not usually associated with the attacks.
I think it kind of astounds people. We get people who see the show all the time going, this is really true? We're like, yes, this is really true. This really happened. We have been to Newfoundland several times. We have experienced that hospitality.
Molly and James Olivas flew from California to see for themselves.
This is kind of a pilgrimage for me. I said, I want to be in Gander for the 20th anniversary of 9/11.
On arrival, they ran into a problem, then ran into Oz Fudge.
We don't have a rental car. I said, well, that's no big deal. Where do you want to go?
American visitors here to Gander will pack up and go home and take with them memories not of tragedy or sadness, but of hope and friendship, just as they have the past 20 years. Todd Battis, CTV News, Gander.
Meanwhile, we spoke to locals across the community on what they remember seeing transpire 20 years ago as the attacks on America took the world by shock, and how they coped during that unforgettable day.
I remember I was at work and I heard it on the radio, and I thought, you know, the first plane was an accident. And then when I went home at lunch, turned the news on and realized that it wasn't an accident. And so then for the next, I don't know how many days, you know, of course it was all over the news and we were all watching those scenes over and over again, and the trauma of it, you know, was quite substantial all around the world really, but particularly I think Canada and the U.S.
It was hard. My daughter was in daycare and far away from me. I wanted to get to her. But watching the day unfold, we were just, as Laurel said, in horror. And when I hear about 9/11, it brings up right away all those feelings and just makes me want to cry.
That day, it was very somber. I was actually at work, one of my coworkers, her mom called her and said that something happened. So we actually went to the local restaurant close by. We were watching it on TV and we were all like just astonished. And so we ended up just going home. But I think that day, nobody will ever forget where they were and what they were doing.
So I was pretty young, but I remember my mom coming home and being pretty upset about it. Obviously, not really understanding quite the significance of the day until a few years later. But you know, very solemn. Kind of felt a little hopeless.
I remember driving into work and hearing that a plane had flown into the World Trade Center, and honestly not being too familiar with what the World Trade Center really looked like, and thinking that it was like a Cessna or a small plane, and thinking that it must have been some kind of weird accident.
It's impacted our society immensely. I mean, everything from airports to security is all different now and how we operate.
I remember sitting at work at the office and hearing about it happen, and I just couldn't wait until lunchtime so I could go check on my kids at school on the playground.
The Ministry of Transportation wishes to advise that there will be periodic ramp closures from the Thunder Bay Expressway to Arthur Street from 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. starting Monday, September 13th until the 24th. The closure is necessary to ensure the safety of road users and workers, while catch basin replacement, curb and gutter replacement, as well as asphalt patching construction work gets underway. Motorists are urged to schedule their travel to minimize any delays. And the demolition of the giant smokestack at the former OPG station could be seen across Thunder Bay earlier this week. Budget demolition has provided us with a unique perspective into the blast of the 200-meter tower. Let's take a look.
Blast imminent in 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, fire.
Here with Kurt Black now. I mean, that's a pretty cool event to be taking place in Thunder Bay. I think lots of people across the city not only got to see it, but probably heard it from their households as well. And speaking of cool events, US Open today, man, intense.
Absolutely, Alex. Some crazy visuals. It was a great sight to see Leylah Fernandez in her first final. We'll have the highlights of that match right after the break.